What if the world's second most powerful military was accidentally dismantled, not by NATO missiles, but by its own paranoid leadership? Imagine thousands of soldiers on the front lines suddenly blinded, silenced, and cut off from the world in a single afternoon. This isn't a hypothetical war game. It is the reality currently unfolding in the trenches of Ukraine. Welcome to this urgent deep dive, where we uncover the hidden truths of global affairs. We are witnessing a monumental collapse of command and control, a self-inflicted digital lobotomy that has left the Russian war machine shivering in the dark. For months, the Kremlin has operated under a mask of peak hypocrisy, screaming about the rotten influence of the West while their entire tactical infrastructure leaned heavily on Western high-tech crutches. But that house of cards is finally falling. The first domino to fall was Starlink. It is a bitter irony that the Russian army, which claims to be fighting a holy war against NATO technology, was desperately dependent on Elon Musk's satellite network for its very survival. Thousands of Starlink terminals acquired through shadowy third-party markets were the only things keeping Russian units connected. Without them, the coordination of artillery, the navigation of drones, and the real-time relay of intelligence simply ceased to exist. But through a masterstroke of digital diplomacy and direct negotiation between the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense and SpaceX, those terminals have gone dark. In a single day, the Russian military's primary window into the battlefield was slammed shut. It was a surgical strike on their cognitive capabilities. But the Kremlin, in its infinite desperation, decided to finish the job themselves. In a move that mirrors the most paranoid chapters of the Cold War, Moscow has begun intentionally throttling and shutting down Telegram. For the average observer, Telegram is just an app, but for the Russian soldier, it was the central nervous system of the invasion. Because the Russian military's official encrypted radio systems have been a documented disaster since day one, soldiers transitioned almost entirely to Telegram for everything from ordering supplies to directing drone strikes. By slowing this platform to a crawl under the guise of protecting the motherland from NATO influence, the Kremlin has effectively severed its own vocal cords. They are trading battlefield efficiency for total information control, and the cost is being paid in Russian blood. The feedback loop from the front lines is now a chorus of absolute chaos. Soldiers and their families are flooding the internet with messages of betrayal, wondering why their primary lifeline has been cut. The Russian leadership's answer is as ancient as it is absurd. They claim they are shielding the army from Western psychological operations, but the truth is far more clinical. They are terrified of the truth spreading. They are terrified of a coordinated mutiny. So they have chosen to blindfold their own troops during a storm. This is a perfect moment of strategic vulnerability. As we speak, the Ukrainian armed forces are capitalizing on this digital blackout. With the Russian side unable to communicate effectively between units, a massive counteroffensive is gaining traction across the Zaporizhia and Dnipro regions. The Russian generals, much like their master in the Kremlin, are proving themselves to be cowards who prioritize their own political survival over the lives of their men. They are attempting to force everyone onto a state-developed messenger called MOX, which is essentially a direct line to the FSB. In that ecosystem, every chat is a three-way conversation between you, the person you're talking to, and a government agent. It's a digital prison, and the soldiers know it. They are now operating in a foreign, hostile land with no way to talk to their comrades and no way to see the drones circling above them. This isn't just a military failure. It is the beginning of a systemic collapse where the state becomes more dangerous to its own army than the enemy is. The promise of a self-sufficient Russia has been revealed as nothing more than a fever dream of the Kremlin's propaganda machine. For years, Putin stood before the world and promised a sovereign internet, a Russian-made digital fortress that would replace Western aviation, Western banking, and Western technology. Yet, 4 years into this full-scale invasion, that fortress is a pile of rubble. Just as they failed to build their own jets or protect their oil tankers from precise strikes, they have utterly failed to build a functional communication network. They are bringing massive, outdated satellite dishes to the front lines in a desperate attempt to replace the sleek efficiency of Starlink. But these plates are so large and emit such a heavy signal that they act as giant bullseyes for Ukrainian artillery. They are not a solution. They are a death sentence. The reality on the ground is that the Russian Federation is cannibalizing itself. Without the ability to coordinate through Telegram or access the high-speed data of Starlink, the modern Russian soldier is fighting a 19th century war in a 21st century world. They cannot target drones effectively because drones require the very internet the Kremlin is currently strangling. This is the greatest hypocrisy of modern Russia. They claim the West is rotting and evil, yet they are so pathetic that they cannot even wage a war without the tools invented by the people they claim to despise. They are trying to trick Ukrainians into registering new terminals for them, but these small-time scams cannot substitute for the thousands of nodes that were deactivated in a single stroke. This digital blackout is creating a perfect storm for the Ukrainian armed forces. We are seeing significant movements near Pokrovsk, Vuhledar, and across the Zaporizhia front. When the enemy cannot speak to their commanders, when they cannot see the battlefield, and when they are forced to use messengers monitored by the FSB, panic is the only logical outcome. The Kremlin is frightened because they did not predict this level of isolation. They assumed the West would be slow to act, but the new leadership in the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has proven that agility and direct communication can bypass years of bureaucratic red tape. The human cost of this failure is becoming impossible for Moscow to hide. There are no more lines of volunteers waiting to join a criminal army that can't even provide a secure radio. The top military officials, likely sitting comfortably in Moscow with a glass of expensive cognac, make grand announcements about protecting the population from NATO interference while their men are being hunted in the fields of Ukraine because they have no signal. This disconnect is the fuel for a potential internal explosion. When soldiers realize that their own government has blinded them to save face in a propaganda war, the target of their anger shifts. We are watching the brink of a massive collapse. The Russian economy is straining, the army is deaf and blind, and the blame is shifting directly toward the man at the top. The idea of a coup is no longer just a whisper. It is a mathematical probability when an entire military elite feels betrayed by their leaders' incompetence. Every decision made by the Kremlin right now seems designed to accelerate the destruction of the Russian Federation. They are more effective at destroying their own country than any external force could ever hope to be. We must continue to watch this collapse closely and stand with those who are defending their sovereign borders. What do you think, is this digital blackout the final nail in the coffin for the Russian front lines, or can the Kremlin find a way to pivot? Drop your take in the comments right now. Smash that like button if this analysis helped you see the bigger picture, and subscribe with notifications on so you stay ahead of the curve as this geopolitical chessboard continues to shift. Your support keeps the truth moving forward. Stay tuned, because the next few weeks will likely change the map of the world forever.